Welcome to Produce Talks.
This whole business is based on relationship and friendships.
Food is darn simple.
What can we do? What are other countries doing?
How important it is for industry to be talking about this.
We're going back to the farm. We're going back to the whole food.
Hello and welcome to Produce Talks, the CPMA podcast. This episode was recorded on March 27th, 2020 and features interviews with industry and government covering the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic across the produce supply chain. We spoke with Davis Young of Fresh Direct Produce, Angela Santiago of the Little Potato Company, and Tim York of Markon Cooperative to talk about what they've seen and their approaches in addressing these unprecedented challenges. We also spoke with the Executive Medical Advisor of the Infectious Disease Prevention and Control Branch at the Public Health Agency of Canada, Dr. Barbara Raymond. We spoke with Dr. Raymond about the measures that companies and individuals handling produce can take to keep themselves and their employees safe. Before we get into it, CPMA wants to first off thank all the produce workers from across the supply chain in the fields, in the packhouses, the greenhouses, the production facilities, transportation and distribution hubs, and in the grocery stores. To everyone making sure that Canadians have fresh produce to eat, we say thank you. I want to also mention some of the work that CPMA has been doing in response to the outbreak. On March 18th, CPMA, along with 20 other agricultural organizations across Canada, submitted a temporary foreign worker program COVID-19 Agri-Food Risk Management Plan to the Prime Minister's office. This plan supports the entry into Canada of temporary foreign workers while taking the necessary precautions to address the threat of the COVID-19 pandemic. On March 20th, the Government of Canada announced exemptions to the air travel restrictions for foreign nationals, which included the seasonal agricultural workers and temporary foreign workers that are essential in supporting production of our domestic food supply. CPMA is also here to support your produce business in navigating the unprecedented challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. We've developed a resource page on our website with information being updated on a daily basis. The COVID-19 Updates resource page is available at cpma.ca/industry. And we start today's episode off with Davis Young, President and co-founder of Fresh Direct Produce. Davis, thanks for joining during this crazy time.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, Ian.
This episode, I really want to cover the types of impacts and responses that we're seeing across the supply chain. But first, I think it's important that we quickly mention the cancellation of the 2020 convention and trade show.
Yeah, it's definitely very difficult to cancel the show, given all the work and all the preparation the Toronto committee have put in. But we truly believe this is best for the members. We appreciate the patience of everyone who waited for this decision. And also, I really want to thank all the sponsors and exhibitors and delegates who agreed to contribute for this year conventions so that we can continue to do all the work at CPMA because we're relying on the convention revenue every year to support all the services that we provide for all the members. So just really want to say thank you for everyone who contributed.
Yeah. So obviously the convention is the major impact that hit us at CPMA. But again, so this episode, I really want to get into the types of impacts and what we're seeing from across the supply chain. So, speaking with you as an importer, as a wholesaler, what are the impacts that COVID-19 has had on your business?
Yeah, so for us, Fresh Direct is an importer and distributor of a variety of produce from all over the world, and majority of our products still coming from the U.S. So the last 16 days since March 11, the World Health Organization calling it a pandemic, we've seen more things change in the world, probably than anything I've ever seen. So in the first week in our industry, we see a sudden surge of demand and therefore also consumption of fresh produce. So business could be up for a lot of wholesalers and retailers up to 50% or more. And very quickly, when the travel bans in place and also public gathering and all the restrictions putting in and also social distancing, we see a drastic change for the last, I would say, 5 to 7 days. So to a point that now the business is back to normal and I would say slightly off. So as an industry, I think there are definitely a lot of headwinds coming up for many of the members, especially in the food service distribution, hospitality sectors, and which is a big concern about losing jobs. And so the impact is, I think, not just temporary, could be long term. So it's important that we kind of all work together and really sustain the industry, but also making sure families and people are able to get the fresh produce during this difficult time.
Yeah, we certainly commend all the companies and the employees across the whole supply chain who are staying on the job to make sure that Canadians have fresh produce to eat. So, what are the types of safety measures that have been implemented at your facilities, to protect your employees?
I think everyone now is definitely paying a lot more attention to personal hygiene, a lot of training and education with signage and going on with the different teams, making sure we sanitize, we wear masks and gloves. And if people have any signs of illness or symptoms, even as very small symptoms of not feeling well, we encourage and we ask staff to stay home. And also not just asking staff to stay home, but also having the support system to allow them to do that with sick leave and with support on salaries and wages during this difficult time. I think that's important because sometimes people may still want to come to work unless they feel really safe. To be very transparent about what we are doing to support the staff, but also knowing that when they come back, we will be here for them. And also for visitors, we definitely reduce, any contact possibly that we could have with other people. Social distancing is another thing that now, even for people who have to come to work because they're in a job that need to be physically present, like operations. For most of our team, now we arrange work from home with very minimal office staff working in the office. So there are a lot of different things that we do to ensure we could provide a health and safe environment for the staff, for our customers, for visitors. But it seems like, it's never ever enough, right? There's so many information comes out every day that we are looking at really how can we continuously do better. So every couple of days, we actually will meet together with the risk management response team, pretty much just dealing with these issues and with how things changing so quickly. The last 2 weeks, I don't know how many internal and external memos we've been already put out because there are always updates and paying attention to that. And the CPMA has done a great job in providing the venue for us to see a lot of resources and information that helps our industry.
Mm-hmm. And it's incredible to see the rate at which all of this is evolving and changing, and how it's making companies really provide those materials and be transparent with their stakeholders on a very regular basis.
Yeah, I got to applaud, some of the retailers, right? They are right there upfront, letting the industry know, customers know, food safety, the staff safety and health is the most important thing. So when there are a situation with, let's say, a customer or staff that's been tested positive COVID-19, right away they would close down the operations and making arrangements to sanitize and to quarantine those staff that are affected or people that might be in contact with that staff. I think it's important that we show a strong leadership at this time so that people have confidence in our industry, people have confidence in how we manage the flow of fresh produce so that they don't have to worry about. And that's the last thing that I want people to worry about at home, given, there's so much concern and uncertainty already around us. Yeah,
food security, that food supply chain, it's critical across Canada, across the world. So looking ahead a little bit, as more and more provinces, states, and countries increase their shelter-at-home requirements, as we learn more about this pandemic, what do you anticipate will be the unintended consequences for produce?
Yeah, I think in the beginning, people were expecting that because people now will be more staying home and cooking at home and not going to restaurants, the consumption and the demand for produce will go up significantly. From what I experienced and what I see the last few days and what I'm seeing coming through, I think it may not be the case. I think we will probably see a slight drop, anywhere from 10 to 15% of consumption or demand for fresh produce. My theory is people are now less likely to shop more often, and when they go, they don't buy as much because of social distancing, because there's restriction in how many people are allowed to be in the store, and also a lot of smaller independent retail. Some of them, they have challenges of hiring people or keeping people in the jobs, and also some people may be worried about being exposed to the virus. So all these factors combined, and plus the economy is not doing well. People's spending power is going to be not as good as before. So all these factors, I think, is not good for any consumptions, and produce is no exception. So I do have a concern, but at the same time, I do look at all the sectors and everything else going on. Our industry is very resilient. I think we can ride it through, but just expect a little bit headwind for the next couple of months. Yeah,
for sure. No, it'll be interesting to see, how our industry is impacted in comparison with others. Being when we're talking about fresh produce and we're talking about perishability and things like that, it's a little bit different from something that can be stocked and sit on the shelves for a long period of time.
Yeah, I would just maybe mention that there are some questions around, the higher prices that we see in the last couple of weeks. Is it anything to do with the demand and supply? I just want to note that there are a few factors that actually affecting the pricing. First of all, the labor shortage in a lot of the farms, both in Canada and the U.S., has caused actually a lot of the farmers or growers not able to pay, or they had to hire a lot of extra people to pay for overtime, or even just to get the product out of their facility. And transportation is another issue during the last couple of weeks. And when we see the exchange rate being, at least a 10 to 15% higher or lower in the Canadian dollar or higher U.S. dollars, all these things are contributing to a short-term surge in pricing. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of macro and micro factors that is affecting our industry, and pretty much we need to pay attention to all the things that are impacting us. Yeah.
Looking maybe even further ahead, how has this pandemic, and maybe this is something that we would have to revisit, once everything settles down, but how has this pandemic changed the way you think about your business in the future?
Yeah, I always look at, what can we learn from this? The two things definitely kind of stood out. First is I feel our industry or our company, we have not really created a good risk management plan and a crisis management plan that can deal with something like this. So with this process, we are learning there's a lot of things we have to consider. What if one of our facilities shut down? What if one of our staff got sick? What if we have to work from home? So the working from home piece is huge because nowadays the technology is there. We just have not embraced it to the point that we should. So now we have a lot more meetings that we are doing either a Zoom or WebEx that we can actually see people, or we can getting multiple conference calls with different groups, encouraging staff to learn and working from home with different technology that we can also access to our folders on our desktop and our network. So it's a steep learning curve, but I feel after this and all the things settle down, we will become a more limbo company and actually better prepare for the future events. So I encourage, all companies to really take this as an opportunity to upgrade and to improve on the process and the procedures and the technology front as well.
And as an industry, are there any larger scale processes or changes that you think we need to start looking at? When we're talking about this COVID-19 pandemic and the concern that, it may be something that lingers on and in cycles or, other similar situations that may arise. Are there any other sort of large scale processes or changes that, maybe we could start looking at as an industry?
I would start at the high level. I really feel with everything's going on, the news that we have, sometimes, we hear there's even leaders in different countries and a lot of high level officials have very different views about what's going on and what we should do. I had a fear that we look at this and some people say maybe globalization is the cause of this pandemic. But if you look back in time, I think Time Magazine had a really great article, even back in the thousands of years or hundreds of years ago, right? They're already epidemic around the world. So globalization not necessarily is the cause. However, the opportunity for us to do better is how do we take advantage of the connected world right now, the information we share, and how connected we are. So at the one hand, in our industry, it's very globalized. On the other hand, we do have local farmings. How do we collaborate and take advantage of everything? And I think this is a great example when the borders are closing up for temporary measures, which is important for quarantine reasons. However, we don't lose sight of both the importance of trading among different members and different countries, and yet having a local supply is also critical for their own benefit of each country and each region. So there are a lot of things, I think, from a high level. We look at things maybe from a now more complete overview. And same with distribution and logistics. We see how important it is nowadays that we have the ability to not just distribute through the traditional channels, from a farm to a wholesaler to a retailer to the homes of, or people go and shop at the store level, but the ability to actually deliver right into someone's home, so that to minimize the contact. And it's unfortunate to taking an event like this to really seeing think about all the food delivering companies, or the ride share companies, that what they are able to contribute to the economy, allowing restaurants to close at the physical location, but they can still deliver food to people that who are not able to go out, even in grocery shopping and produce as well, right? So I think there are a lot of things that we can look at it from a more holistic point, and things may actually evolve a little bit faster. Even sustainability about packaging. We talk about plastics, and we put a lot of time, and definitely there's some concern about plastic, but at the same time, we do need to look at what alternative packaging so that we could protect the food and integrity and safety of the people having less contact with produce. So it definitely raised a lot of questions, but I feel that the CPMA has been doing a lot of work in this area, and now I think it just shows the importance of us members coming together through one unified voice to raise concerns and find solutions for all these issues that we are facing together in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. If anything, it's an opportunity for unity and to share resources and to support one another and to continue to feed the country. So, Davis, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it and your insights. I hope you stay safe and best of luck.
Yeah, thank you, Ian. No, appreciate it.
On the line now, we have Dr. Barbara Raymond. Dr. Raymond is the Executive Medical Advisor with the Infectious Disease Prevention and Control Branch at the Public Health Agency of Canada. Dr. Raymond, thank you so much for taking the time today.
You're very welcome. I appreciate the interest.
As a citizen, I want to say thank you to Public Health and to yourself and to Dr. Tam for the transparency through all of this process, and giving those daily updates. I think it's important that you are keeping everybody informed, and I think it's great work that you guys are doing.
Well, Teresa Tam is a pretty incredible woman. I've had the pleasure of knowing her for a good many years now, and she is exceptional. I have to say that I think Canada is very lucky to have her at the forefront, and I'm very proud to be working with her on this. The transparency and the communication to Canadians is something that she believes in very strongly, and I would support that because essentially we are relying on Canadians to take action in order to get this outbreak under control. And if we are asking Canadians to take action, they need to understand why and be convinced that we're asking for good reason.
Right. Yeah. Everybody has a role to play, for sure.
Absolutely.
So today we want to talk about the COVID-19 pandemic and the impacts across the produce supply chain, and specifically around safety of individuals, of workers, and of food. And so perhaps much of this conversation can extend to the food supply chain at large, but we're talking mainly about produce. So to start maybe high level, is produce safe to eat?
Well, absolutely. Absolutely, produce is safe to eat. At this point in time, there's no evidence whatsoever to suggest that COVID-19 spreads through food or water. So it is absolutely fine to eat produce. I think in the agricultural sector or in the produce sector even, from time to time, there have been experiences with outbreaks of different infectious diseases, and that has resulted in implementing some very vigorous infection prevention and control strategies in the way that our food is handled in Canada. And those strategies stand us in very good stead through this COVID-19 outbreak as well. And
when we're talking to our consumers, should consumers be doing anything different in terms of, how they wash their fruits and vegetables?
No, we have no recommendation for any additional measures to be taken specific to COVID-19. We always encourage people to wash fruit and vegetables and prepare it properly. Use clean surfaces, wash hands, all of those sorts of things. But the same practices that you would employ at any other time still remain relevant.
When we're talking about protecting employees and creating a safe work environment for our members, so businesses across the supply chain, in greenhouses, on the fields, in grocery stores, of course, what direction can you give those that are growing, packing, wholesaling, retailing to, be taking the right measures?
What I would say is that the best policy is to support the good health and well-being of the employees. A healthy employee who comes to work well is productive, is able to continue to contribute to the critical food supply, and maintains the good health of the workplace, maintains or contributes to the well-being of their colleagues, and so forth. So we can't just focus on the activities inside the workplace when we're talking about an infection like COVID-19. We have to think about the entire environment that the individual is living in. And the practices that we recommend in order to keep employees healthy really have to be applied throughout the entirety of their day. So things like good hand washing, frequent hand washing with soap and water, any kind of soap and water for 20 seconds and rinse well. Use alcohol-based hand sanitizers if you don't have soap and water available. Things like respiratory, what we call respiratory etiquette, which basically just means if you have to cough or sneeze, that you cough or sneeze into your arm or into a Kleenex, and then you dispose of the Kleenex. And then you again do hand hygiene to make sure that you don't have any residue on your hands. Things like being very attentive to your own health, and very importantly, if you are not well, stay home. Don't go to work if you're not well. it brings the potential for transmission into the work environment. Other things, social distancing, or now we're trying to think of it as physical distancing, but try to maintain a distance of 2 meters from other people as much as possible, and things like that. But they are the practices that will not only protect employees in the workplace, but will protect them throughout their day.
Right. And so if there's facilities that, maybe can't accommodate the physical distancing, are there maybe other physical barriers or protective gear such as masks or gloves that could provide sort of an alternative solution? I'm thinking like along packing lines or retail outlets, that sort of thing.
Yes, I can't give advice on any specific environment because each environment is to some degree unique. But I will say that it's a good idea to take a look at every work environment on a regular basis, and this could be that opportunity, and consider, is this the optimal processing line? Is this the optimal working environment? Are there things that we can do that would make this more effective or efficient or safer? So it's a good time to take a look at all of those practices. There can be little things, just moving workstations or increasing the distance between workstations, or staggering shifts. There are a number of different measures that can be taken, but they really do have to be customized to each workplace. The most important thing is to make sure that you have the practices in place that will keep employees healthy, not only in the workplace but beyond. If the solution is to use what we call personal protective equipment, which is things like gloves or masks or such. It's really important to learn how to use those properly. Sometimes if they are not used properly, you're more at risk using them improperly than you are from not using anything at all. One of the simple things is gloves. People just put on gloves and they think that's it. But really, with gloves, it's very important that you perform good hand washing or hand sanitizing before you put on the gloves. And when you're wearing the gloves, you must not touch your face or touch nose or mouth, any other surface that you could contaminate or introduce any material to yourself. You have to, when you take off the gloves, there is a specific way to take off the gloves so that you don't, your hands don't come into contact with the contaminated part of the glove. Mm-hmm. And once you dispose of the gloves, it's very important to perform hand hygiene again before you go about the rest of your day and inevitably touch your face or nose or eyes. So it seems a simple thing just to wear gloves, but all of these practices have important elements to them that have to be respected.
Great. Yeah. So before I let you go, I just want to talk about one other point. CPMA has been working with other agricultural organizations and with the Canadian government on ensuring that the fresh food supply remains across Canada. That includes with temporary foreign workers. So I'm just wondering if you can briefly talk about, some of the specific safety and isolation measures that are being implemented for temporary foreign workers in Canada.
Mm-hmm. I guess I would just say that this outbreak is requiring some truly exceptional public health measures to be put into place. Measures that I have never seen in my lifetime and others may never see again in theirs. For example, the the restrictions at the border and the restrictions on travelers, or the requirements for travelers or people entering Canada from other countries to self-isolate for 14 days after arrival. And that is really to reduce the risk of further introduction of COVID-19 into Canada. Now, equally important to Canada is our food supply. And our food supply is critical to our being able to maintain the functioning of the country and to mounting the response against COVID-19. So obviously, maintaining our food supply is of vital importance. Temporary foreign workers are and have been an important part of the Canadian food supply. They contribute to the planting and harvesting that needs to go on at certain times of the year in order for us to have such a robust domestic food chain. So it's important for those individuals to be able to come into the country. We have to balance that benefit against the potential risk associated with individuals who may be coming from countries where the outbreak of COVID-19 is ongoing, or and may not be as closely monitored as it is here in Canada. So in terms of balancing the benefit and the need that we have for our temporary foreign workers with the risk of further introductions of COVID-19, we are requiring that temporary foreign workers will self-isolate for 14 days once they arrive in Canada. So when they come into Canada, they will be screened just as all travelers are to Canada now. All individuals entering Canada are asked about their health status. And if they are healthy and well, they will continue on to their destination, where they will then quarantine for 14 days before they begin their work in food production. If they come to Canada and they are not well when they arrive here, they will be assessed at the point of entry and referred for appropriate medical care and assessment, and will be required to have their 14-day quarantine undertaken at the point where they enter Canada.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Raymond. I really appreciate your time. Obviously, I'm certain that this is an exceptionally busy time for you, so I appreciate your time and your insights.
Great. Well, I hope you got something you can use.
We're going to take a quick break with a word from our sponsor, Nature Fresh Farms. After the break, we'll hear from industry leaders Angela Santiago and Tim York.
Hi, everyone. This is Peter Quiring from Nature Fresh Farms. As we all face a significant global challenge, I would like to take this opportunity to recognize and sincerely thank the entire produce industry for their hard work and dedication. It is in moments like these that our purpose and values matter most to the people and communities we serve. Each member of this industry is an invaluable part to keeping our communities healthy and fresh with the produce we provide. I'm proud and inspired by the way our industry has risen to this challenge. Thank you all for your unwavering support.
Next up on the podcast, we have Angela Santiago, CEO and co-founder of the Little Potato Company. Angela, thanks so much for taking the time.
Oh, thanks, Ian.
On this episode, what I really want to get into is to talk about some of the impacts that we're seeing across the supply chain. Perhaps maybe we could start off. How has the COVID-19 pandemic impacted your business?
So there's, I would say, two major answers to that. One is from the business sales perspective. Obviously, that has been a positive impact. We've seen increased demand. Most of our business has been in retail. We had some in food service. But obviously the increase in people of hunkering down, eating more meals at home has definitely impacted our sales in a positive way. We're seeing way more demand from retail. If you want to say negative or the more concerning impacts is obviously the health and safety of our employees. This is new. And so try to maneuver to figure out, how to keep them healthy, but also how do you continue doing business when there's obviously been a surge in demand?
Mm-hmm. Do you feel that the perishability of potatoes, maybe compared to other commodities on the shelves, helps in that regard?
Yes. And I think what we're also seeing, two things, not only in our business, but also personally when I go walk the grocery store to get, stuff for my family. One is we're noticing obviously a leaning towards more larger size packs. So moving away right now from convenience, HMR, but going to more larger packs, things that people can stock on. So our SKUs that are typically larger size bags of potatoes are moving faster than I would say your more convenient, smaller size. The other thing that we're noticing, and this is where potatoes fit in there, people are going back to just a comfort, simplicity of food, things that they are pretty sure they know how to cook and know how to deal with. So if you look in particular, even walking the grocery store it's interesting. So you notice what's missing, but it's also interesting to notice what people are leaving behind that are not picking up. Right. So we're in a great spot right now where obviously some of our larger pack sizes are doing really well, and potatoes is a familiar food product. People know I can put it in my pantry or my fridge and it'll last. And most of us know what to do with a potato.
Yeah, it's a really good point. So talking about some of the measures that your company has been taking in response, you mentioned keeping your employees safe. What are some of those specific measures that, have been implemented at your facilities?
There's obviously some really critical ones that we've implemented at the facility. Well, first is those who can work from home went home. And so then the second thing is obviously increased sanitation, limited obviously as much as social distancing or increased social distancing as we could. That becomes difficult when you're working in a plant and in a line, a production line where sometimes that has to happen. So looking at really unique ways. So, avoiding carpooling, probably implementing temperature taking, always asking the question before people arrive for a shift do you have a fever? Do you have, so just a stop and think kind of thing. Yeah. And just making sure people are much more aware of what it means to be socially distant, even at work. Yeah. Now, I mean, you had said, that we've really never seen anything like this before. Did you have a crisis management response, risk management type plan in place? And is that helping you through this? We did have a crisis management plan in place. Of course, it had nothing to do with the pandemic, right? Flu. So that will be added to our crisis management plan for sure. I think what we used was obviously who are the people that need to be sitting at the table having regular discussions on implementing. So that basically pulled out from a plan that was extremely helpful, as well as I think the urgency and the frequency in which we have discussions was definitely birthed out of a crisis plan. So that it did come in handy, but at the same time, you're making it up and writing it as we go. Yeah. The one thing that I keep mentioning is the rate at which this really took off and the rate at which employers and leaders need to be transparent with their employees and with their stakeholders. So even that's a really good point, Ian, is just even the weekly emails from me, I'm going to move to video messages, just reassuring, hey, we are aware, we're on it, we're doing everything we can to make sure everybody's safe, as well as celebrating that, our company's in a great spot from relative to what some other companies are probably dealing with laying off people. So it's also a reminder of, okay, there is something to be grateful for in face of this.
Yeah. Now, so one thing we've seen over the last day or two in particular is some of the differences and in the responses and the challenges between the US and Canada. Is there any comparison and contrast that we can do in terms of impacts between the US and Canada?
Yeah, so it is different. So it added a different layer of what we had to stay on top of. In comparative, from what I can see and what I'm witnessing, is Canada seems to have a little bit, they're a little bit more ahead of it in terms of even small things like when you go to a store, they have things on the floor that show you 6 feet apart. I'm not seeing that where I am. It seems to be a little bit more cohesive, although there is nuances between the provinces, a lot more cohesiveness between the provinces and how Canada as a whole is adapting versus it feels a little bit more fragmented down here in the US.
Okay. So looking a little bit further ahead, as more and more provinces, states, countries increase their shelter at home requirements, and as this pandemic, continues to evolve, what do you anticipate will be the future risks or unintended consequences for the produce industry?
The longer this goes, I wonder if, and this is a question, I don't have an answer for this, but the longer people have to stay at home and are limited to their trips outside of their home, I'm worried there might be a shift on moving away from perishables and moving more to things that have a longer shelf life, like canned goods, pasta. Right now, you don't seem to see that, but that is a question mark I have, is if we get to be to a point where we're limited to a day a trip outside of the home, I might limit the stuff that I bring home from the grocery store in terms of what could last me the week, what could last me a couple of days. So that might be a question people start asking themselves when they start shopping.
Yeah, no, it's a really good
point.
Could
have a negative impact on produce.
And then, so again, looking down the road a little bit, how has this, and maybe we need to revisit this in a couple months, but how has this impacted the way you approach or you think about your business?
Oh, great question. So there is obviously the question of, forcing people to work remotely. Has definitely looked at, oh, wow, do we really need to travel as much as we do? There's a lot you can do by video and audio, just by on the phone. So one observation. The second observation is the power of just connecting more often. Wowie schmowie. You really move the dial way quicker than if you were on this rhythm of a weekly. 15-minute calls in a day can actually really be quite effective. So along sort of that topic too is also the you're learning really quickly who needs to be in on the discussion and who just needs to be informed. So that actually helps move things along a lot quicker. I think the other thing, which I think for most companies who value their employees, you're preaching to the choir, but at the same time, this was just a really humbling reminder of the importance of in produce, the unskilled labor, the ones that are showing up every day to work to actually put the product together. And that to me is, I think, a really humbling reminder of the importance of those people, the importance of those people's health, but also the importance of those people coming to work. They're quite frankly are what keeping the doors open.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's certainly shifting people's perspectives a little bit, I think. And going back to your point about those, maybe those sales calls or buyer relations, the thing about the produce industry is that it seems to me like it's a little bit old school. It's very much based on the relationships that you have and so on. And it's interesting how this is going, the impacts in that regard that it could have as well.
And you definitely see it within your organization, but also outside of your organization. Who's stepping up? Mm-hmm. Who are the suppliers and the retailers that are like actually coming together to help solve a problem? And that is get more food on the shelves. So I think retailers are probably seeing what are the suppliers that are stepping up for them. We certainly see it in our world, what suppliers are stepping up for us. And you also see it within your organization on who are the employees that are stepping up.
Yeah, certainly. Certainly a disruptor that we're living in right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Angela. I appreciate your time. And obviously it's certainly a busy period for you. So I really appreciate it.
I'm glad I could help out and give a perspective. So thank you for asking me.
Next up on the show, we have Tim York, president of Markon Cooperative. Tim, thanks so much for taking a little bit of time. Obviously, I'm sure it's pretty busy for you.
Happy to be here, and thanks for inviting me, Ian.
So on this episode, what I really want to get into is to talk about some of the impacts that we're seeing across North America. So maybe to start off, how has the COVID-19 pandemic really impacted your business?
Well, significant, obviously. It's when you realize, aside from Gordon Food Service, who has some cash and carry stores down in in the U.S., not in Canada, but in the U.S., they've got about 170 cash and carry stores. And of course, retail has been booming. It's gone crazy, and Gordon's been very busy there. But aside from those stores, we're about 96% of our sales are of strictly food service. So the food service sector is the one primarily impacted by the COVID-19. Most states, I think there's about 46 states now that have orders shutting down restaurants and prohibiting gathering in places like that. So, what we've seen with a number of restaurants and variously effective at this is setting up for takeout orders. I think there's about a dozen restaurants here. I live in Salinas area in California near Carmel. There's about a dozen restaurants out of probably 60 or 70 in Carmel that are offering takeout. Those are more higher end type restaurants, that have had to adapt both entree prices and portion sizes and so on, and then figure out how to do that effectively. You look at somebody like an Olive Garden, for example. They've already had a significant takeout business, and of course, somebody like Domino's Pizza or the drive-through QSR, McDonald's, and In-N-Out Burger, and the rest of them. That's obviously a significant portion of their business. But all along the food service chain, we have seen sales impacted. Even Starbucks has closed down. Any store that doesn't have drive-through, Starbucks has closed down across the U.S. as well. So significant impact there. And then, of course, that obviously impacts our sales as our distributors are selling strictly to food service. Across the board, their sales are down, particularly on seafood and fresh produce. And the higher end cuts of meat.
We in Canada, restaurants are closed here as well, while delivery remains open. We'll see, if delivery numbers are up or down, but certainly by the sounds of it, sales for restaurants generally are taking a big hit.
Yeah, and I think some of the delivery services have adjusted their service fees, but the way we think of restaurants in general is they have about 30%. If you're spending $1 on the menu, or $10, let's say, on the menu, typically you could figure about 30% of that is going towards the actual food cost, about 30% towards employee, about 30% towards overhead, and then 10% for various overhead, and hopefully some profit in there. And the delivery services, some of them are as high as 30% of the restaurant bill. So it takes all of the profit out of and more out of the restaurant operator. So we've seen a real emphasis on takeaway rather than delivery. The delivery services are just too expensive for operators to sustain that.
What are some of the safety measures that have been implemented at your company to protect your employees?
We had already started moving about 2 weeks ago before the crisis full on hit, and we had a stay-at-home order by the governor. We were getting people set up to be able to work at home. So almost all of our folks, we have a staff, we had a staff of 61. All of them we had set up at one point to be able to work from home. The only people that are in the office, myself and a few other directors, and then AP has to be here because they're handling paper invoices, and suppliers still expect to get paid. So they're in the office. Otherwise, everybody has been working from home.
Right.
Our first priority of getting people at home were those that were at risk. We had one pregnant woman, some parents with particularly vulnerable children, and so they were our first priority to get them working at home first, and then everybody else. So that's, first off, moving people outside of the office, opportunity to spread the contagion, and then doing measures as CDC has encouraged us to do, washing our hands, regularly, wiping down desk surfaces, avoiding common surfaces. So, I'm not exactly a hypochondriac, but I'm not drinking out of the common coffee pot because somebody else has picked that thing up, and
right.
Who knows if they had clean hands and that kind of thing. So it kind of turned us into these walking bubbles of our own. But
well, it's funny because if you talk to a health professional, they'll be saying that it's stuff we should have been doing all along. But
right, yeah.
So looking a little bit further ahead, what are the areas and risks that you're watching for, for if there's any other future impacts down the road?
I think there's a couple significant risks. Our distributors are all broadline distributors. So fresh produce is just a portion of their sales. But I think the ones that I think we should be watching for, if I'm a grower shipper, for example, I would be concerned about the ability of some of my customers to be able to pay. Our operations are all multi-generational family businesses, as I said, broadliners that are well capitalized that can survive this. I don't think all wholesalers, distributors in the business are going to. Certainly, they're not going to. We've heard estimates that potentially up to 20% of the restaurants in this country will go broke. Wow. It's the independents, of course, that don't have the ability to survive, whether they're a franchisee or they're an independent restaurant. Mm-hmm. And some would argue the restaurant industry is overbuilt, but this is not the way you want to correct that. Obviously, it's deeply impactful on people's families and their livelihood. So a long-term impact to the business. And then you wonder about the psychological aspects of getting on airplanes again and, being in close proximity to people like that, sharing restaurants, how long it begins to feel like normal has returned. And I think we're months away from that. No matter if they lifted it today and said everybody's safe, I think we've got a ways to go before we really kind of get over that psychological hurdle. Yeah. And then more immediate within the supply chain, we were just talking to one of our QA inspectors this morning. The field workers or the people that are working in the processing plants, they don't have protective gear. You can't get it. They can't get enough for hospitals, let alone for field workers or people working in processing plants. So you think about the impact of a harvest crew where you have 25 to 30 people working in close proximity to each other. If one of them gets sick, the fact that it could contaminate the rest of that crew, or you might even want to quarantine the rest of that crew, could have some real impact on our labor supply, which is already tight under tighter border restrictions. And here in the U.S., H-2A restrictions, and in Canada, you've got the temporary workers. To me, that's one of the concerns is will we have enough labor over the long term to sustain?
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, the variety of impact across different points in our supply chain, different impacts across every industry. It really is a major disruptor, and it's really forcing companies to adapt and to take these extra measures. Still looking a little bit further ahead, I mean, how has this pandemic changed the way you think about your business?
Well, first off, I would say one thing is we've had a lot of practice, unfortunately, doing crisis planning. And so we've done a lot of work, of course, within our industry around traceability on products and having a process flow when we have to do a recall or a withdrawal or market advisory around our products, that we've got systems in place to do that. And we've rehearsed that enough times. We've got those systems down pretty well. Mm-hmm. What we were not prepared for was a pandemic of this nature that literally shut down our business. If we weren't able to take people offline, work from home, we would have been in a world of hurt. So, we're obviously going to have to think about crisis planning more broadly than we've been thinking about it in the past. We've done even some crisis planning thinking about what happens if the building burns down, right? And so you get servers off site, or you've got servers mirroring each other. But pandemic we hadn't thought about. But then longer term, as we've had to eliminate some roles here, then it makes you, as you are getting back to whatever the new normal is, make some of those decisions about, well, did we really need these extra people? What was the role they were performing? And was that a nice to have or a need to have for our business? So I think it'll cause a rethink of some of our processes and services within our business. And then the second is, what we're really proving for us older folks that like this command and control, to be able to walk out into the office and see 50 people sitting at a desk and have a pulse of the business. For those of us that like that, if you will, comfort, you take that away and people are working from home, and you really realize they can do that pretty darned effectively. And this younger generation has been asking for this for a long time. And so I really think we have to rethink the role of a central office and communication tools. How many people really need to be in the office? What are those ways that we can provide supervision, insight, communication, collaboration when people are working from home or offsite, wherever they may be working? It's going to cause a rethink, certainly, of our business processes and how we structure ourselves overall. Mm-hmm. And it might leave us some spare office space in case you're looking for some office space, Ian. We're going to have some extra, I think.
Well, that's good. I got a place to work out of in California if I ever head down.
There you go.
Although I'm not going to be flying anytime soon.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, Tim, thank you so much for your time and your insights. Best of luck to you down in California there.
Thank you.
Thanks again to Dr. Raymond, to Davis, Angela, and Tim for joining the show. If you are looking for more information to support your produce business through the COVID-19 pandemic, we have developed the CPMA COVID-19 resource page available on our website. Head to cpma.ca/industry to learn more. Until next time, fill half your plate with fruits and veggies, continue to seek out new knowledge, and basically never stop growing.